Hello, guys. I am Victoria. I'm a simple housewife who thought she had the perfect family. However, I never knew that my family was filled with traitors. This is the story of how I was able to cut off a toxic person and saved my children from being kidnapped. My husband Ian and I were having a great life. He had a very successful career and was earning a lot of money. I, on the other hand, was a humble housewife who was expecting a baby. My husband is a very kind and loving man, and took great care of me. His caring nature is what made me fall in love with him. His family was also pretty sweet towards me and welcomed me with open arms. This is why it was so strange to me when his mother Annie suddenly started to hate me. Initially, I could tell that the news of my pregnancy didn't sit well with her. I figured that she might be going through something and was projecting her annoyance at me. However, Annie's behavior worsened when I declared that I was having twins. She said, "Oh my God, you are having twins. Please tell me they are boys, Victoria. Tell me now." "Yes, Annie, we are having twin boys." "I knew it. I knew that my babies would come back to me. I am so happy. I have been waiting for so long. Finally, I will have them in my arms." Annie's behavior and her words really confused me. However, Ian was pretty patient with her and tried to deflect the topic. I decided to ignore her weird comments and wait for things to be clear. Well, after knowing everything, Annie became even more obsessed with my pregnancy. She was always dictating to me about what to do and what not to do. It was frankly getting very annoying. When I refused to hear her advice, she said, "Why are you being so stubborn, Victoria? You are a dumb girl and will end up hurting my children. You need to listen to me. I know what is best for them." "Annie, I know you want the best for us, but trust me, I'm not making mistakes. I have enough guidance from my doctor. We are all set. You don't have to worry." "Don't act like you know everything. This just proves how unfit you are to be a mom. Thankfully, the kids will have their real mom once they are born." "I can't wait to have them in my arms." Slowly, her behavior became highly alarming. I decided to talk to Ian away from Annie's prying ears, so I asked Ian why Annie kept calling our children hers. He sighed and signaled me to sit down. Ian said, "You don't know about this, but Mom was actually pregnant with twins. It happened after I was born. Unfortunately, the twins didn't make it to the birth." "Oh my God, that is so sad. But why does she think our twins are hers? That makes no sense." "Mom has some unresolved issues from that time, Victoria. She never got help to overcome her grief. We tried hard to put her into therapy, but Mom just never listened to us. I'm trying to be patient with her. She went through something very traumatic, so I have been gentle with her." "I understand, Ian. I will try to be gentle towards her as well, but if she doesn't get better, we might have to set some boundaries." Hearing Annie's story really broke my heart. My pregnancy hormones were high, and I felt very emotional, so I decided to let her be at least a part of my pregnancy. However, I soon learned that it wasn't enough for her, me. She wanted my children, and she was adamant that they were meant to be hers. Her behavior got worse, and Ian had to tell her to back off. Thankfully, she listened to us. Things got a little better after that. However, a few days before my delivery, Annie showed up at the house. We were in the midst of a discussion about Ian's transfer to another city for his job. Annie walked in and said, "Ian told me he will be working from LA for a while. You will be all alone in this house. I bet it will be a major inconvenience." "Yes, we were actually discussing what we can do. Ian has been contemplating leaving his job." "That is ridiculous. You need his income, Victoria. You don't earn any. Do you want to starve the children?" "Of course not, Mom. Why would you even say that? We are just concerned about her being alone right now." "Well, I have a solution for you. I can move in and help you out, Victoria. That is, if you two accept my help. I have raised Ian. I know everything about motherhood. Since Victoria's mom is far away, I can help her for now. That is actually a good idea. I will be able to concentrate on work knowing all of you are safe. Victoria, what do you say? I think Mom will be of great help. If she wants to take such a big responsibility, then I am fine with it. By then, it had been months since Annie had made her weird comments. In fact, she was actually starting to follow our rules and boundaries, so I saw no harm in having her over. She did have the experience, and it would be a good thing to have her around. At that time, I never knew that I was making a mistake. If I had known, I would have never allowed her in my house. Ian was with me when our sons were born. They were all very healthy and perfect in all ways. We were very proud parents and showed them off to everyone. Annie was also very happy for us. She did insist on being in the delivery room, but we didn't allow that. Everything was going smoothly until Ian left for his new job. Annie moved in a day before Ian was supposed to leave. She was acting very caring towards me and the kids, so I thought everything would be okay. However, she soon changed after Ian left. Annie became obsessed with my children. Every time I held them, she said, "You need to stop hugging my children. They need to be with me as well. Quit holding them for so long. You don't deserve to spend so much time with them." "What are you talking about, Annie? I need to hold my children. I'm actually feeding them right now." "Absolutely not. You need to hand them over right now. I have the baby formula ready for their meal. There is no need for you to feed them." Annie practically snatched them out of my arms. I was still recovering from postpartum medical problems and wasn't strong enough to deal with this. Annie always did this when I was spending time with the kids. She did take good care of them, but rarely allowed me to spend time with them. When I got a little better, I started to push back and set some boundaries. However, nothing worked to keep Annie at bay. I never told Ian what was happening. He was already stressed being away from us. Knowing Annie was with us, he had some peace. If I complained about her or kicked her out, I knew he would leave his job and come back. We simply couldn't afford that right now, so I bought through the insults and abuse that he threw at me. Things got worse as the months passed. However, there was one thing that particularly bothered me. Annie kept meeting up with a strange man at my house. She met him every week for a month. The most confusing part was that they always spoke in French, which I didn't know. Annie was French, so she knew the language. When I asked her about him, she said, "You don't need to butt your head into my business. I can invite whoever I want to this house. You are forgetting that this is my house." "Annie, you just cannot call anyone here on a whim." "Shut up, Victoria. I'm a grown woman. I don't have to listen to you. He's my special friend and will be here any time he pleases." Alarm bells went off in my head immediately. I had a very bad feeling about this man, so I decided to snoop in on their conversation. There was a security camera in the living room, and all I had to do was access the footage. I didn't know French, but my best friend Alice did. I knew that she would get me the answers I wanted. I collected the footage and went over to Alice's house, taking the kids with me as well. I was actually afraid to leave them with Annie. Alice welcomed me to her home and was generally worried about why I showed up randomly. I told her my situation and asked her to hear the recording. She agreed and listened to the entire thing. When she was done, she looked pretty horrified. She looked at me and said, "Victoria, listen to me. You need to go home, pack your bags, and leave with your kids. Do it quickly." "Why, Alice? What's wrong? What were Annie and the man discussing?" "They were going to take your children away from you. Annie planned to take the kids to France and keep them there. Your husband doesn't know about this, and she wants to do it before he comes back from the trip." "Oh my God. Are you serious?" But how would she do that without my consent? That's what the man is for. He was making fake passports for Annie and the kids. I think your mother-in-law is paying him for this job. He's already processed the documents. You need to get out fast. I'll go and collect my things, but I don't want Annie to suspect anything. She's going to pay for thinking she can take my child. Will you help me, Alice? Of course I will. That's what friends are for. You can stay with your kids at my place. I have plenty of room for all of you. It's better than staying at the house right now. I hurried out of her house and went home as sneakily as possible. I collected our important stuff and went back to Alice's place. The kids were with her the whole time. When night fell and Annie saw us missing, she called me and said, "Where the hell are you, Victoria?" "It's almost 8 at night. How can you be so irresponsible? Where are the kids? They shouldn't be out right now." "Stop shouting at me, Annie. The kids and I are having a sleepover at my friend's house. We won't be home today." "What?" "No! Who said you can take the kids for a sleepover? I didn't give you permission." "Give me your address so that I can bring back the kids." "I don't need your permission, Annie. I'm their mother, not you. I can take them wherever I want. You need to remember that." "Don't be so full of yourself, Victoria. I will have my time. You won't be able to control the kids for long." She said that and hung up on me. I could tell that she was fuming. Thankfully, she didn't know Alice's address, so she didn't have the means to show up at the house. After months of being restless, I was finally feeling peaceful. Alice was a great supporter and truly came through for me. When the kids went to bed, I received a call from Ian. He said, "Victoria, Mom called me a while ago. She said you took the kids and went somewhere. She's worried sick. What is going on?" "I was about to call you, Ian. Relax. I'm at a friend's house. I told Annie the same thing, but she's mad at me for taking the kids." "She is pretty mad at you, Victoria. Can't you just tell her when you will be staying out?" "I'm not a child, Ian. Plus, these are my kids. I don't have to take her permission on what I do with my children." "You are being ridiculous." "Look, you don't need her permission, but try to be a little amicable with her." At that point, I knew that Ian needed to see the true face of Annie. So far, I have been simply contemplating if I really want to punish Annie. However, I realized that she will be in our lives if I don't take the necessary actions. So I said, "Ian, look, there is something we need to talk about. This is very important. You need to come home." "What is it, Victoria? You sound stressed. Are the kids okay? Are you all right?" "Yes, we are fine, but there is something going on here. I can't tell you when you are not here. Can you please come as soon as possible?" "All right. I'll take a flight tomorrow. Will that be fine?" "Yes, please hurry. Also, don't tell Annie that you are coming back. This is about her, and I don't want her to know." "I called you all right. I won't tell her. Please be safe. I will be there soon." I was finally feeling relieved that Ian took my concern seriously. However, I was still super panicked. I couldn't sleep at night out of anger and anxiety. Every time I closed my eyes, I thought Annie would come and take away my kids. So I held them and stayed with them throughout the night. The next morning, Ian called me after he got off his flight. I gave him Alice's address and told him to come ASAP. When he arrived, Ian gave me a hug. He also called the kids and spent some time with them. After a while, Alice arrived, and we knew it was time to talk. I said, "Ian, I know this was very sudden, but I needed you to come home. I'm going to stay at Alice's place for a while." "What happened, Victoria? Why didn't you come home?" "It's because of your mother, Ian. She's been planning to take the kids away from us." "What are you saying? I don't understand." "For the last month, a strange man has been visiting our house almost every day. Annie simply said that he is a friend of hers. They always talked in French, and I didn't understand what they said. I got suspicious of them, so I recorded that conversation. Alice here told me what they had been planning. That's right. The man kept saying that he had the fake passports prepared, and he said she would take your kids and move to France so that she can raise them without you two. That's not possible. She is my mom. Why would she do this? I don't believe it. The recordings are still with me, Ian. I guess she forgot that we have a security camera in the living room. Here, see it. You understand French, so it won't be hard for you to know what they are saying. I showed Ian the footage, and he simply looked at me with uncertainty. However, after he saw the footage, Ian grew extremely angry. He said, "Alice is right, Victoria. Mom was planning to take our kids to France. Hell, she even told her family back there about her plans. They think you are a horrible mother and that she is doing this to protect the kids." That sounds just like her. All these months were hell living with her. She always made it clear that she deserves our kids more. We were stupid enough to have her around. I am so sorry, Victoria. I let Mom stay because I thought she would help you. I had no idea she would become like this. Don't say sorry, Ian. It's time we teach her a valuable lesson. We cannot let her get away with this. You are right. Have you thought about anything? I told him my entire plan. We would go to the police. We also planned to confront Annie in our house. The plan was to make her confess to everything and catch it on a security camera. We would go for a restraining order against her. Also, we planned to turn her in for forgery of passports. We wouldn't leave her friend out as well. They were both going down. After we hatched out our plan, we went straight to the police. Alice also accompanied us there. We submitted the previous recordings and promised to bring more evidence. The police also said that they would follow us to the house when we confront Annie. So we all proceeded towards the house. Our kids stayed at my aunt's place close to the police station. We asked the police officers to stay outside while we confronted Annie. We would call them in if required. Ian and I walked into the house and spotted both Annie and the stranger. They looked like deer in headlights. Annie said, "Ian, what are you doing here? Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" "Who is this guy, Mom? What is he doing in my house?" "Oh, he is just a friend. He was just leaving. You know we catch up on our lives from time to time." The guy just waved to us nervously and laughed. We let him go because we knew the police would nab him just out of the house. With the man gone, we turned to Annie. I said, "So, Annie, is there anything you want to tell us?" "Tell you what, Victoria? You need to answer me about where you took my kids. It's been a day since I saw them. The good news is, you will never see them again. We know all about your plans, Annie. You thought you could just get away with it." You have some explaining to do, Mom. Were you really going to take our children away? Why would you even plan something like that?" "I don't know what you are talking about, Ian. Victoria has been lying to you. She just wants to keep me away from my babies." "You are the one who is lying, Annie. We have your conversation with the guy in our CCTV footage. We know what you have been planning. There is no point in lying anymore." "Fine. Yes, I'm going to take my children. They were meant to be mine. Victoria only carried them because I am too old. They are my lost twins. They deserve to be with me. They are our children, Annie. You are absolutely insane and need help. Your game is up, Annie. We are done with you. We won't allow you around our kids again." "Yes, you will never have a relationship with them or us. You need to leave. The police are waiting for you outside. I hope you finally come to your senses and get some help." "No! You can't keep me away from my babies. I won't allow this. I will take them away." At this point, Annie was behaving erratically and was almost aggressive towards us. So Ian went and called the police while I tried to calm her down. She lunged at me and hit me in the face. Of course the cops saw everything. In the aftermath of the incident, we were able to get an emergency protection order against Annie. We also applied for a restraining order and were approved for it. Annie tried her best to convince the judge that her delusions were true. Thankfully, the judge never listened to her. She was banned from seeing the kids and ordered to go through a psychiatric evaluation. Annie didn't like that at all. She had to be put in a psych ward. As for us, we decided to go permanently no contact with Annie. She was never to have a relationship with us or the children. Ian contacted his aunt, who then took over the care of Annie. Ian was adamant that we would never support Annie financially again. He was done with her and wanted to protect his family. Ian and I also decided to relocate near Ian's job. It would allow us to be close and stay away from Annie at all costs. In the end, Annie and the stranger were both put on trial for their criminal activities, and Annie lost the rights to her grandchildren. On the other hand, my family and I are thriving and doing better every day.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, There are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.